Cool. Hello, everyone. Very happy to be here. So my name is Charlie Ward. I'm the founder of a online community called Weekend Club. So I'm here to talk to you about how I pivoted Weekend Club from a in real life or IRL to a remote paid community. And in particular, I think I'm going to try and share the 10 biggest learnings that I kind of picked up along the way. So thank you very much to Jacob and Mac for inviting me here. It's an honor to be amongst such kind of esteemed speakers. So, very happy to be here. If people could just in the comments, just say where they're coming in from. Rosie, I see that it sounds like I have a bit of an echo. Are others hearing that as well? It was just for you, Rosie. Got Brooklyn in the house, Portugal. Cool, thanks, Cole. Sounds okay. Sorry, Rosie, I'll try and speak extra clear for you. Wow, loads of you now. London, Montreal. It's crazy. It feels like others have said it, but it feels like a particularly pertinent time to be talking about building community with all that's going on in the world. I hope everyone and their loved ones are well and safe. And yeah, let's just look to have a good time and let's get started. Wow, from all over the place, Germany, Vancouver, Austin, Berlin. I was actually born in Berlin, weirdly, but I only lived there for about 6 months. Anyone from Russia in the house? I lived there for a few years. Quarantine beers, okay, yeah, so you may think I'm catfishing slightly from my profile picture, as you'll see soon. Yeah, so need to sort this out at some point. Cool. Yeah, it's probably been growing for a good couple of months or something. So I think we're probably ready to get started, so I don't just waffle about my beard and stuff for too long. So here we go. And everyone can see my screen okay? Let me just look at the comments. Awesome. Thank you, everyone. So that's me, actually a couple of years ago. So as you can see, I look a little bit different thanks to quarantine. Probably other reasons. So this is about pivoting Weekend Club from an IRL, which means in real life, to an online community. So it was a physical event originally, and now it's online. So here we go. I just want to start off on this quote from Greg Eisenberg: the destiny of every massive social network is unbundling. It's not a matter of if, but when. And I think this is a very interesting quote to think about, especially over the next kind of 5 or 10 years. And there's a lot of truth in this, and you see it across lots of different industries as well. So if you think about like TV as an example, you had TV channels, then you had a bundle of cable TV, and it's going back and being unbundled again into different carriers such as Netflix, Disney Plus, Hulu, etc. But another example I thought would be good to speak about right now is the unbundling of Craigslist that we saw in the 2010s. So originally you just had a list of all these different things. So whether it was a local community, you got next door from that, personals and dating, Tinder came out of that. Housing, Zillow came out of that. And we can see this kind of trend happening elsewhere. So that was the 2010s, but in the 2020s, I think we're probably going to see the continued unbundling of Reddit as well. So what that means is wherever you can find a vibrant online community already, there's probably an opportunity to create some kind of paid social network off the back of that. And there's a lot of the ways these can operate. A couple of examples we can see here. So Stadium Live is live scores and sports with friends. And you could say that as analogous to the subreddit r sports, or Pipeline for a community for streamers turning their passion into a career from the subreddit streamers. And there's lots and lots of examples of this starting to happen for reasons which we'll go into a little bit later on. So we're already seeing a rise in paid communities built around specific verticals. So most of these, MakerPad is, I think, a couple of years old, but most of these are actually only from the last perhaps a year or so. And these examples are all kind of vaguely related to Weekend Club, in that it's around a kind of accountability and building businesses to some extent, not like all of them, but some of them. So MakerPad is a no-code community, which is also focused on education. We've got Founder Summit, which is for bringing founders together, and so kind of built around an event. Everything Marketplaces is, as it sounds, it's around marketplace builders getting together. Nest Labs, which you may be familiar with, the MakerMind newsletter from Anne-Laure Leconf. And so that is a community for mindful productivity and psychology and lots of other things. Visualize Value is pretty new as well. And this is it's led by a designer called Jack Butcher, and it's focused on productivity and making money online and that kind of thing. So another example of this is also Weekend Club, which is what I run. So just want to talk a little bit about this. So Weekend Club's goal is to help each other build profitable internet businesses in a productive, knowledgeable, and fun environment. What I was seeing before at the time when this started was there's a lot of communities like Indie Hackers, which is kind of where this originated from, where people could attend meetups, or they could obviously write posts, comment on each other's posts, like learn from each other, that kind of thing. But there wasn't much of a way to actually work together. So I know what you're asking yourself. Wait, what the fudge is Weekend Club? So it is the #1 live accountability community for Indie Hackers. And Indie Hackers is basically interchangeable with Bootstrappers, but it's an online community for Bootstrappers, basically. And it's great. You should check it out if you're into this sort of thing and you haven't heard of it. Indie Hackers and solo entrepreneurs at $35 a month. We run remote weekly accountability sessions on Saturdays over Zoom and Slack from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. And you can kind of think about this as like a mini sprint. So like a lot of our members come from the tech world and they're used to working in kind of 2-week sprints, but this is like a 1-day sprint where at the beginning we have a stand-up of what we're working on and how we can help each other. Lunch in between with like general discussion topics to do with things like growth and user research and all sorts of things. And then we have a kind of sprint review or demo at the end of the day where you kind of reflect on how your day went and you can share your work for feedback. In terms of what it includes, the Saturday remote co-working session, so you have up to 30 indie hackers or so. People work on their own projects and help others with theirs. And so people are at kind of different stages. Some people are just starting out. Some people are already full-time bootstrappers, like making money from their products. The members only Slack is where you can kind of get detailed feedback on your work, help others, and learn what resources and tools other weekenders are using. Weekenders is our term for Weekend Club members. I think a couple of Weekend Club members are actually tuning into this. Shout out Guillaume and Stefan and any others who are watching this. So yeah, we've got some awesome members. Really proud of some of the kind of early people we have here, but it's just like a little bit of love that we've got in the past on Twitter and elsewhere. Generally, I'm just very focused on just making sure people have a really good experience and we get the right sort of people involved who are very helpful, kind, and ambitious with what they're doing. And it's just been a lot of fun, to be perfectly honest. So we have members now from all over, so like the UK, USA, Australia, Switzerland, and Italy, building some really interesting products. So we've got products like some of you might have heard of Simple Poll, Veed, Calenduck, and many more. Some making in the tens of thousands of revenue a month, all 100% bootstraps. So it's very interesting. So we're growing about 20% month on month, and we expect to hit about 2,500 in monthly recurring revenue by the end of 2020, which is great because that's when I can start to think about working on this full time rather than basically part time, because it's what I love to do. So this is me back in 2018. You may notice this looks somewhat different to the video you saw just now. So I'm Charlie Ward, obviously. I have a bit of an unusual background for a paid community founder. So I used to work in ad agencies originally, and I studied like classical history. But then I later went into product and user research as well, which is how I got really interested in this kind of area. So I've kind of launched a lot of random things. Some succeeded, some failed. So I've succeeded launching a ad agency. I wasn't the founder, but I was the first hire. So I was kind of there all the way. A co-working space, a pool float brand we sold on Amazon. It was it's kind of for another presentation. It was quite interesting. Once sold a Facebook page. I failed at making a pop-up fried chicken shop. Well, I succeeded in creating it. I failed at making a workable business model. It turns out it was quite difficult. Also failed at a kids yoga brand and a bunch of other things. But I chalk all these things up as stuff that was actually pretty useful for me long term. I put the me in imposter syndrome as well. I don't consider myself the most qualified person at this summit to start a paid bootstrapper co-working community, but I think a lot of community builders come from unusual backgrounds. To be fair, so I'm no different to that, basically. So the purpose of this presentation, I'm going to tell you how I started with an in real life community and pivoted it to a paid online one. So it all began with a free in real life pub meetup for indie hackers called Indie Beers. This was when I first got into indie hackers back in late 2018. And some of us were just posting on Indie Hackers, and a few of us just agreed to meet up. And I was like, oh, why don't a few of us just grab a beer? It wasn't even really a meetup. Like, it was just like the 5 of us grab a beer. And I said, let's call it Indie Beers. And sort of there we went. So take your mind back to September 2018. Nobody showed up to my first meetup. That is the pub on the left called The Water Poet in Shoreditch, and I was there on my own. And on the right, you can see the DM chat I had with the one person who originally came. So, hey, don't tell me you're there now. I just left. It was awful. Sorry, it just takes me back just thinking about this. It was awful, as in the pub was awful, the pub was loud, and that kind of thing. So yeah, imagine your first meetup ever. You're super excited to everyone, and that's the first thing you see. However, it gets better with some gentle persuasion. And shout out to Matt. He's actually a weekend club member and a friend now. So he came back. So he literally came to the meetup, decided to leave before I got there, went home, and he came back from his house to go back to the meetup to hang out with me and just have a drink. And this was the first person I'd ever met who knew what indie hackers or bootstrapping was. So, you know, really couldn't make it up, to be perfectly honest. So fast forward to September 2019, about a year later. So I kind of got my act together. I figured out how to use Meetup. Started doing made a logo, did a bit of branding. We got about 500 Meetup members, and we had like 50 attendees a month. And we had lots of regulars as well, which was really cool. There's a really kind of vibrant product and indie hackers community in London. We got our first sponsorship deal, but people get asking me something, especially Will Klopp, a friend and another member. So people kept saying, I like attending Indie Beers, but it would be awesome if we could all work together somehow, which was by everyone all the time, especially Wilhelm. And when you hear something enough times, you're like, okay, maybe there's something in this. So 1 month later, we had our first session, Weekend Club was born. So all we did was we found a co-working space called Ministry of Startups, which is in East London. Shout out to Ben Davies of Ministry of Startups, absolute legend, really sorted us out. So 15 of us met up there, and we had our first kind of weekend club session. So it was kind of like a day long sprint, if you will, in terms of started off with what we're working on, how we can help each other, grab lunch in between, and then did a demo at the end. And there's nothing quite like the energy of a bunch of like-minded people in the same room, like trying to help each other. It was just really fun. Yeah, like I said, it was awesome. Kind of got ahead of myself there. So there were big plans. We were like, maybe we should scale to more spaces. Right? Maybe we could run hackathons. Maybe we could open our own co-working space where we could do this, but like Monday to Friday, not just a Saturday. You can probably guess what happened next in terms of then COVID-19 happened. And obviously, far worse things that happened in the world than scuppering my weekend club plans. But, you know, it's one of those moments that founders come into a bunch of moments like this in the journey where you're like, do I just give up? Like, what am I going to do? Is this worth continuing? And this was probably one of those moments, to be honest. But I decided, you know what? We've got a strong community. People like it. Maybe we can just make some changes and it will work remote instead. So what I want to share with you are my kind of 10 hard-won lessons from starting IndieBiz, then starting Weekend Club, and then pivoting it to fully remote. So just got on the time, already at 18 minutes. So I'll try and not dwell on these too much. So lesson one, and it's true for most community building, that there is no playbook. No one is coming to save you. As everyone's favorite fortune cookie VC, Naval Ravikant says, proven community builders are even rarer and higher leverage than proven developers and designers. There's no school or playbook. Just a reminder, no one is coming to save you. Lesson two, what works offline doesn't usually work online. And this is a mistake I made. I just dumped everything we did offline, online, thinking it would be the same, but it's not the same. Zoom is less fun than an in real life meetup. You need to work to raise the energy levels. Driving connections needs rethinking. We added accountability buddies, so people were paired with someone automatically for a one-on-one video call throughout the day to egg each other on. And we added random introductions each week through Donut, which is very expensive, by the way. If anyone's building a cheap alternative, let me know. And more moderation is needed in person, generally. Lesson three was you need community guidelines earlier than you think. So luckily, this one didn't kind of make us unstuck because we heard about this early on. But you can't unbake a cake, basically. If your community's already reached scale, it's too late to implement meaningful cultural change. So it's important to try and get your guidelines and your vision set, to be honest, in my opinion, as early as possible. Some people sometimes think, oh, it's too early, but as I said, you can't change it when you're too big. Lesson four is to do things that don't scale. So having unusually thorough onboarding customer service is actually a really easy way to stand out because not many people are willing to take the effort. So this is from Comsor, which is by Community in Chat. Shout out Mac for sharing this. So what I do is I personally send a welcome letter personalized to each member of Weekend Club with a bit of like free swag, like a coaster, some stickers, that sort of thing. And for IndieBiz, I personally messaged each new meetup member. And when it got past like 200, I kind of like ran out of time. I couldn't do it anymore. But early on, like these little things can make a real difference. So lesson five is the platform you use for your remote community is critical. So the actual experience, when it's remote, the actual experience people have, it can be very much defined by the actual product you use. So the experience of running a community on Slack is very different to, say, Circle, for example. Slack is very like live messaging. Circle is more kind of asynchronous, like a little bit more like a forum or something. So what I suggest is think about who your users are, what they're already used to, what you intend them to do on the platform, and work backwards from there. So I realized for Weekend Club, a lot of our members were already on Slack, like they all worked in tech, they're used to it. And we have like a very much like live, like social element. So something like Circle wouldn't have really worked for us. Slack is still imperfect, don't get me wrong. It's expensive, it has no voice channels, but overall it's pretty good. Also, I had a demo with these guys, Geneva Chat, recently. I watch out for them. They kind of they kind of like unbundled Slack a little bit and just made it like a really fun kind of social experience. So yeah, watch out for those guys. So lesson 6 is you make what you measure. So one thing I measured was in November in real life versus March for remote. So how many people would be very disappointed if Weekend Club went away? So in November, it was 50% very disappointed. In March, it was 23% very disappointed. So it kind of obviously people weren't enjoying the remote version as much. So I gathered a bunch of feedback from this and I used that to make a bunch of improvements. So what you measure is very important. So just down here, what else I measure? So I also measure retention, free trial to paid conversion, and monthly recurring revenue. So I realize there might be a lot to take in, but I realize we're at 23 minutes, so I'll probably just go through these. Raise your prices. So I used to be against charging at all for all raising prices, but it has its benefits. It's much easier to raise your prices than acquire more users. So it's some of the biggest leverage you can get is working out how you can, get your existing customers to spend more. There's nothing wrong with doing this, because if it means you can offer a better service to them or more services, then that benefits them as well. Users who pay more are also less likely to churn. And as I said, it gives you freedom to deliver a better service. Lesson 8 is that gamification works. So we have a custom emoji that weekenders can give each other for being helpful. Is this little indie beer, a little reference to the original meetup. So if you're helpful to someone and comment a little indie beer, it automatically gives them a point on a leaderboard. Shout out to Gizlan for building this functionality. It's a product called Peers. So this automatically gives you a point. And almost daily I see someone gifting a beer to someone else. And I've really noticed it kind of helping engagement and making people help each other a bit more. Lesson 9 is to create more leaders. So this is a conversation on the right our members had on growth. And you'll notice that I'm not actually in it anywhere. This is because a member, James McKinvin, is now running half the session. So he was a long-time member. And we decided it would be great for him to actually run some of the sessions himself, which I also pay him for, but he wants to do it. Do you know what I mean? And it makes more sense to have someone that came from the community than hiring an outsider. So a community can only grow beyond you when you empower your most active members. The last lesson, then I'll try and rifle through the rest of the slides. Hopefully I'll answer some questions, is build in public. So committing to regular updates keeps you accountable. Here's an Indie Hackers post I did recently on this actually very topic on pivoting Weekend Club. It's also a great way of marketing your products with lower customer acquisition costs, especially if you have some kind of following who are related to your segment. You also get early feedback. So I've got tons of useful feedback just from sharing stuff on Twitter, honestly. Like, it's amazing. I think it's like a superpower being able to do this. So in terms of what the future holds, so our vision is to build the world's best bootstrapper support network. So some stuff in the pipeline, we're going to add perks for members, such as AWS credits and other kind of discounts. That's a nice bundle. Private Q&As with experienced bootstrappers. And a founder wiki. So we've started building a curated resource list of top articles, books, courses, and tools for the different categories like paid acquisition, building Slack apps, user research, etc. So I'm really excited about what this holds in the future. So just to go back to this, the destiny of every massive social network is unbundling. It's not a matter of if, but when. I just want you to remember this, because I think there's actually a huge amount of opportunity ahead for fellow community builders like yourselves. So we're going to see another kind of Cambrian explosion of remote communities in the 2020s, which is funny because the web's going full circle. This is what it was before you had aggregators like Facebook. It's kind of going from that to bundling to unbundling again into lots of disaggregated kind of networks. I think the three things driving this are more people coming online than ever, of course. 43% of the world still doesn't have internet access, but it's going at 1 million people per day. In at least the medium term, due to COVID-19, it makes the internet the de facto place for social connection around your interests. If you have no other option, it's going to drive more people online. And the Walmarts of social media, so Reddit and Facebook are the Walmart of social media, they're kind of everything to everyone. These are blunt tools, but community leaders can create more unique experiences for members using tools like Slack, Discord, or Mighty Networks. Weekend Club would not work as a Facebook group or a subreddit. It just wouldn't be as good because there's just very little customization and it's just not quite fit for purpose for what we need. If you can find a subreddit for it, there was a paid community opportunity. So I think a lot of community people here will also be already entrepreneurs or maybe want to be someday. And I would really think about this because there's a lot out there. The good thing about paid communities, I think it's a bit underrated, is they can choose their own destiny. You don't need to rely on donations. You don't need to rely on volunteering or ads. It's a bit more sustainable. And if it's sustainable, you can actually do more for your community. And in today's climate, we're going to need far more community builders and maybe even rebuilders. So I just want to leave you with that. And it's time to build and rebuild. Thank you very much for listening, everyone. It's been an absolute honor to take up 28 minutes of your time. I was hoping to give 5 minutes at the end just to chat to you guys. But if you've got any questions, I'll have a look now. Let's have a look. Do you pay your member that is leading most of the sessions? Yes, I do. So he doesn't lead most of them. Currently he leads half of them, but yes, I do. Did you code that gamified beer Slack emoji setup, or was it a service? It's a service called peers.hq, and it was set up by my friend and a Weekend Club member, Gislan. So yeah, he built that. Something about the Geneva link. Yep, I'm sure that's been shared on there already. Thank you very much. Do you use any tools in Slack, like add-ons? To be honest, we just use Peers for the gamification element. Oh yeah, sorry, we use Simple Poll. Simple Poll was built by Will, who's a member as well, and it's really good. But yeah, we use Simple Poll a lot. Where do we see Weekend Club in a year's time? In a year's time, I expect, well, obviously it goes to plan, we'll see. I expect to be working on it full time. I expect a bunch of new perks, regular Q&As, probably, hopefully like over 100 members by that point. Yeah, we'll see. Do you think once the pandemic is over and we go back to normal, it'll be great to surf offline? Yes, I don't see why not. There might be a bit of apprehension originally on this, but yeah, I think it'll go back to normal. To be honest, if it goes back to completely normal, we'll probably have a hybrid version. So we'll have in-person events and we'll also have remote events for people. So yeah, it looks like we might be out of time, but yeah, you can follow me on twitter.com/Charlie Award, or you can find out more at weekendclub.co. We do 30-day free trials. So if you ever do want to test us out, feel free to do so there. Yeah, thanks very much, everyone. Doesn't look like there's any more questions. Well, I'm just not loading. Thanks, Mac. Cool. Thanks, everyone, for your time. And hopefully I'll catch you guys soon.